Hello again, everyone. Welcome to 90s to Now. Of course, I am Jerry Strauss. And folks, we have one of our coolest guests ever this time out. You've seen him before. We actually spoke to you last year for a very different project, David, for the storied life of AJ Fickery. An amazing movie, by the way. And now we're talking about something really a complete 180 on the spectrum. This is Peacock's new hit series, Mrs. Davis, and he's here. David Arquette, how are you, man?
Thank you. I'm good. How are you, Jerry?
I'm good. I'm doing real well. Lots of excitement around this conversation, so I'm certainly excited to have you here. And a lot of excitement around the show. Congratulations, by the way, because you guys dropped a batch of episodes to start. Now you're going to be rolling them out week by week. But people are just going crazy because this show is honestly kind of insane. I mean, it's there. It's throwing a lot at us. It's bonkers. It's wild. Um, Coming off of something like AJ Fickery and other projects that are more grounded, uh, what excited you about joining a project like this?
Oh my gosh. Well, it's just such an incredible project with tremendous writers and directors and amazing cast. So just to be able to be a part of something like that. And then I get to play a magician. I've always loved magic since I was a kid. So to be able to put on a magic show and do all these illusions and study magic and,
Yeah, it's. I
just
mean,
develop
and
this character who's like got a lot of confidence on stage, but then he gets behind when the camera's off. He's super insecure and uncomfortable. It's a fun role.
I was going to ask you because you're so public about your passions, right? Like you're always one to kind of follow your passions and follow your dreams. You've been a pro wrestler. You've been really behind resurrecting the Bozo the Clown brand and diving into that world. How much of you and that sensibility that you've picked up from other things have you been able to bring to this character?
A lot. I think I brought a lot of sensibility. I mean, I like to sort of focus on things that I love that, they're typically related to some form of art and like wrestling or magic or music or whatever it is, art. So I don't know, just sort of surrounding myself and being able to sort of play make believe like of an illusion is like I just remember seeing David Copperfield or David Blaine and just being amazed by these incredible magicians.
Yeah, yeah. It's so cool. It's cool to see you having fun on this show. Everyone seems to be like top form on this show. The performances behind the insanity are really what seems to drive the show to another level. Um, there's an element of science fiction, of course, to the show, and I believe that the greatest and definitely the most terrifying science fiction movies and TV shows and content are all kind of based in our fears about something real, like a real technological trend gone askew, gone wrong. And we definitely see this in Mrs. Davis with, the idea of artificial intelligence and how much that is really affecting our lives today here in 2023. Is that something that you've were kind of aware of and you can feel as this kind of overarching effect on those who've been watching the show?
Yeah, definitely. I was aware of the AI. There's a lot of talk about it, but when we read this, we'd heard about AI. We weren't quite as clear as what it could do. Now it's alive and it's out there and it's writing people's, term papers or whatever it's doing. you know, Lawyers using it to write drafts and then revise them and all that. But I don't know. It's a pretty interesting world, and sort of the timing is pretty amazing too. Almost as if AI was behind it.
Oh
No,
my God.
no, I'm just kidding. But yeah, it kind of did line up. There were a lot of things that kind of lined up in this really kind of eerie, creepy way, where it's like, I don't know, the way they sort of explore religion and magic and AI and technology and belief and all these things. And also the way they balance humor and like real dramatic moments and, these subtle uh, jokes. I don't know. It's a really kind of show you can sit back and just really go on a adventure and just not question any of it. Just like, what is going on?
Yeah, it's one of those shows, and I know people are, there's a lot of people watching who maybe haven't started it yet, and those are who are also watching it, or the episodes that have been released so far for the second or third time, because it's such a deep show. It's so rich with things to pick up if you watch it again and again.
Yeah.
And speaking of which, we heard again and again, once we announced that this interview was happening, we heard from, our viewers and fans of you again and again and again. We are flooded with questions for you, man. So,
Cool.
we are going to do our best to get through a good sampling of them. We're
Yeah.
going to shout as many people out as possible. We're talking all about different aspects of your career. Are you ready?
Sure. I love this.
Well, look, and I'm going to get the negative out of the way first, and I'm not
Good.
going to do these individually, but I
It's
got to
okay.
ask you, because a lot of people know you primarily from your kind of endeavors in the pro wrestling world. A lot of people know you from your documentary, of course, from 5 years ago, You Cannot Kill David Arquette, which was an amazing redemption story. And the whole story behind that is this idea that you're just a guy who loved the art of pro wrestling, got into it. The wrestling fandom absolutely rejected you. 20 years ago, or I should say about 5 years ago, you decided you're going to give it another try and kind of right that wrong and try to get that respect from the fans and try to, just do things, I guess, in their eyes, perhaps in your eyes, the honorable way to do right by the pro wrestling world. You did so. And I got to tell you, when I put out the call for people to send in questions for you, I still got a huge batch of people from wrestling fans, a batch of questions and comments, just kind of, F David
Amazing.
Arquette, like why did he ever step in a wrestling ring? Like they're never going to let it go. How do you
Yeah.
feel about that now that you've gone through that journey? Does it still bother you?
Yeah. It doesn't bother me quite as much, to be honest with you. I mean, I love wrestling. That's why I got into it, if that's the question, And that's really what I've noticed is like the ring announcers, the people scheduling the travel, like everybody, the promoters, everybody loves wrestling. That's why they're in the wrestling business.
Yeah.
So that's why I got into it. That's why I did Ready to Rumble, because I got to meet Macho Man and work with Diamond Dallas Page and
Right.
Rey Mysterio and all the Booker T and all these guys. So it was a great thing to be a part. And then they, made me the champion. I should have said no, I guess, but it was always a dream of mine. So I decided to say yes. And, people have been mad ever since. I don't know. I sort of addressed it in the documentary, and a lot of those people who probably wrote that didn't watch the documentary, or if they
Mhm.
did, they still have the same opinion, which is fine. It's not a really big deal, but I enjoy the wrestling world. It's such a complex, interesting, crazy world to be a part of.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I think that, anyone who's watched that documentary, and catch it if you can streaming where it may be streaming right now, because it really is an amazing story, and it shows that, you're truly a guy who jumped into that world purely because of your love for it. You put your body through things that no human being probably should, just for
It's
the love of
so
the game.
painful.
Yeah.
Wrestling is like the most painful thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, of course, besides wrestling, you knew a lot of people were going to come through with questions about the Scream
Sure.
franchise. So we're going to get to a sampling of those as well. Um, from Horror School 3286, let's start here. What does your work in the Scream franchise mean to you? Now that you're looking back, you're on the other end of it, personally, professionally, what does that body of work mean to you?
Well, I don't know. It's pretty much the most significant role I ever got to play, because I got to work with Wes Craven, Courtney Cox, and then I ended up having our daughter named Coco Arquette. So that really, as far as work and life kind of uh, coming together, that was the most important. But then I'd say Scream 4 was another really important one, because then at the end of it, I met my new wife, Christina, and that's another gift. sort of that Wes sort of set up for me by keeping me around. And
Mm,
just playing a role like that, you don't get an opportunity a lot of the time to be part of something that lasts that long,
yeah.
that people have such an emotional connection with, that is so important to a lot of people, that they really find a lot of joy in, that they've grown up throughout the years watching. So they feel like these know these characters, and they really have a personal connection with them. So that's a really special thing when you meet fans and they're like, Scream was our first date movie. Now we've been married 25 years. Like that kind of stuff is really sweet to me, and I love it.
That's awesome. BBBBBB Dubs 177. What's a story from on set uh, that you've always wanted to share, but it's just never come up in an interview before? And I think they're talking about on the set of the Scream movies, but let's open it up to your entire career. Is there any just super entertaining story that you'd love to tell about making any of your, well-known projects that you just haven't really had a chance to talk about?
Hmm. Um, I don't know, like specific scenes or anything. I don't know. There's one scene where in Scream One where we're walking up the hill, and I'm with Gail's character, Courtney's character Gail, and a flashlight, and a car comes, and we jump and roll over, and we kiss for the first time, and that was kind of a funny scene to shoot because Wes was there, and he's like, "All right, you're gonna have to remove her headband because we have to lose it for continuity, and so that when you take that moment, really look into her eyes." She's gonna ask this question, and you're gonna just be lost in her eyes and say, like, "I've been looking for this my whole life." And it was just a funny line that Wes gave me. We kissed. There was like flirty vibes going on, so it was just a really kind of uh, fun, kind of exciting scene.
That's really, it takes me back to the TV show The Office. When they wrap up The Office, they talk about, the characters of Jim and Pam in The Office. For those who are fans, talk about how this, faux documentary, the documentary that exists in the TV show, how it basically documented their entire romance and everything coming together. And there's so much of that I'm sure you could look back on the Scream movies and you can kind of see parts of your personal life and how it unravels behind the scenes while you were making those scenes.
Yeah, absolutely. All the way to full circle on Scream 5, where I have a 5-year-old and an 8-year-old and an 18-year-old. So yeah, it really did, when you get to be a part of a film series that lasts that long, because
Yeah.
there's a lot more time in between them, and you don't have like episode every week. So it's like a longer term thing. And then once I love that this is like the 90s show because it just it was part of that time. So then it's connected to the nostalgia of that time and
Mhm.
that time period and what you were going through at that time. And then new fans discovering it and then having like a love for the 90s the way people have love for the 80s or whatever. It's just so funny to watch the sort of progress of time and fans and how much it grows. And
Yeah.
really it really feels like special to be able to be a part of something like that because it doesn't happen with all these projects. It really seldom ever happens.
Yeah, absolutely. And that would certainly explain the the reaction in finding out. Of course, I think we're past the point of where we have to worry about this being a spoiler. The fact that
Yeah.
Dewey was killed off in Scream 5, of course. Soulburner74 wants to know, uh, what was your initial reaction to finding out that your character was coming to an end?
Well, I was reading the script. They had sent it to me. They're excited to do another Scream. And I'm reading the script, and Dewey has a really great role in this. I'm so excited. And then I get to the scene where I die, and I'm like, oh, I just had to close it and kind of like be like, oh, I
Mm,
don't know. It's kind of painful. The whole experience was kind of painful because it was kind of like the death of a character I knew or person I'd grown close to, or the loss that it would be within this film series, but to the fans. So I felt a lot of that. And when I was filming it, I was it's during COVID. I'm locked up in this little hotel room cooking like for myself every night, not going out to restaurants. Like I interacted with the younger cast a little, but I kept to myself a lot.
Yeah.
It was kind of a, I don't know, it's kind of a emotional experience.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
when it all came, it just you have to get to. I got to a point of just gratitude to have been a part of it in the first place.
Well, that being said, uh, and several people asked versions of this question, but Red Rum 237, would he ever consider returning in flashbacks or in some form, whatever form that may be? There was mention of perhaps a prequel, some sort of a t like a series, a TV series, kind of looking at Dewey maybe from you know somewhat earlier years.
The lost years.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
the lost years between like when they broke up and when he like got down in the dumps. Yeah, I think there'd be a lot of stuff there.
Yeah.
Maybe more rebellious, kind of a little more angry, angry Dewey, which is funny to play because he's such a dichotomy. Like I think whenever you play the extremes, um, a police officer that doesn't get any respect gets laughed at. It's just something really funny about that. So even Dewey being like a tough like guy is funny. Like there'd be a lot of humor within that.
Yeah, yeah. Is that something you would be open to, like revisiting that character if the situation were right?
Sure. I mean, you always want to like, I don't know, you want to make sure it's the right setup and everything, and it makes sense doing it. You don't want to just do it for its sake. But
Right.
yeah, I'd love to. I love those, those films. So to be a part of it in any way.
Cool. Abby, one of our newest members at the 90s to Now Facebook group, would like to know if you could play any type of character that you haven't played before, what would it be and why?
I've never played like a soldier in war.
Mm.
It'd be tough. I know that would be kind of a grueling experience. Um, I've never been part of any superhero franchise.
Mm.
So I love DC and Marvel and all those sort of genres.
Ah.
Star Wars, I love those worlds. I don't know if it's like I'm too recognizable or something or whatever it is, like to like take you out of it. But if I could be a part of any of those worlds, I would love to. Because they're all such like they have such great fan bases. They have like just this history and this I loved them as a kid as well. So
Yeah.
it's just a continuation of stuff I love.
Cool. Um, Mutant 92, what acting role would you most like to be remembered by? If your career ended tomorrow, we know it's not going to, but everything you've done so far, in your mind, what's your signature role?
Oh man. I mean, my signature role would definitely be Dewey because it's the one I've done the most.
Yeah.
It's kind of close to me in a weird way, like his humor and his awkwardness. It's very close to me. Um,
Is there one that you're most proud of beyond Dewey?
well, there's an amazing film called The Gray Zone that Tim Blake Nelson directed. That I got to work with some amazing actors. It's a really profound story about uh, the Holocaust and Sonderkommandos, who are other Jews that kind of convinced Jews to go into the gas chamber.
Mm.
That's a really powerful film. I learned a lot on a film called Dream with the Fishes that's now available on Blu-ray. They just released it, which is really a sweet film written by, directed by Finn Taylor, who it's sort of autobiographical about a friend that was uh, dying of a terminal disease and himself who was kind of suicidal at the time. So it dealt with a lot of that stuff. There's a lot of like, I don't know, anybody, who's feeling down, 988 is a suicide prevention line if you need to talk to someone. It's just because there's so many, it's just painful. It's hard. I hear a statistic that 22 uh, veterans
Mm.
take their own lives,
Yeah.
and it's just something that we got to like start addressing and really providing them some support and let them know that they're not alone and that it will get better. I personally have a lot of like pain and like deal with stuff and just kind of like, uh, don't let those negative thoughts and that, negative voice, be as powerful as it can be sometimes. So I don't know why I went off on that tangent, but
Yeah. No,
sorry.
it's important stuff. I'm curious. You're mentioning a lot of really important things that you've done, really in recent years. Would you consider this like the past, however many number of years? Is this your favorite time of your career as far as the kinds of roles that you've been able to expand yourself into?
um, yeah, I guess so, but it's kind of outside of career. It's just the point in my life where I'm feeling very, worked on my relationship, trying to become a better father, learn from my mistakes, and you know, um, so just be at peace. I'm at peace a lot more. But I do love, being able to be a part of something like Mrs. Davis is super high level in Hollywood, like the quality of it, the quality of the writers and the show and actors. So that's really beautiful to be able to do that. It doesn't happen all the time. You know, sometimes it's a crapshoot if you're doing little indies or this or that, how they're going to turn out.
Hmm.
But yeah, I'm really I feel blessed to be able to entertain people.
And this isn't even a question, but I did want to hit it. It's from Low Kitchen 9995. Not a question, but as a kid, I really enjoyed C Spot Run. And I hope he knows, speaking of you, of course, that your movies made a little kid's life better, even if it wasn't a critically acclaimed film. And I think about that, about a lot of things that you've done, even movies like Airheads back in the 90s.
Mm.
Obviously Ready to Rumble. These are movies that didn't win any Academy Awards, or there was no critical buzz about them, but people just loved them and enjoyed watching them. You've been a part of so many projects like that, and I feel like that's always kind of been the priority for you in your career, is just doing stuff that brings that joy to the world, whether it's behind or in front of the camera, or wrestling or the clown world, et cetera, et cetera. Are you proud of the fact that that's kind of the way I think your career has been and will continue to be defined?
Yeah, I am. I am really proud of that. And thanks for pointing that out. That's so nice to hear. But it's hard too, because on a certain level, I want to be taken seriously as an actor. And I don't know if people do or don't, or people in the business do or don't, or people at the top do or don't. But it always feels like you're kind of trying to prove yourself, and choosing roles the way I do doesn't necessarily set you up for that. You kind of like, I don't know, there's an arrogance in Hollywood and a real like snobbery where if you do something like a kids show or something like that, there's a group at their dinner who are all putting you down. You know what I mean? How could they do C Spot Run? But then you hear a statement like that, and that's why I do it. That's what it's about, like bringing joy to this guy as when he was a kid, or people with their families being able to watch. I mean, that is what it's about for me. So it's this weird thing where I sometimes feel like I should be a little more uh, picky about what I do, but then there's something comes up and I get to work with Snoop Dogg and do some like funny Domino's movie, play a really ridiculous character. I go for it. Just somebody's gonna watch that and just get a kick out of it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it seems like you're having a lot of fun kind of finding that balance as you've figured out a way to do your whole career, man. So
Thank you.
again, congratulations, Mrs. Davis. For those of you who want to catch up, it's on Peacock right now. At least the initial episodes are, and we're continuing to unroll every week. There's twists, there's turns every single episode. So you want to get on board and join the conversation. And it's been great to talk to you, David. Thank you
You
so
too.
much.
Hey, thank you.
And
Appreciate it.
thank you guys for checking us out this time on 90s to Now. We will see you next time.